Elden Ring is 1 year old today. Booting up the game for the first time a year ago was almost like a fever dream. The amazing music still gets to me today with its sheer epicness, preparing you for one hell of a journey once you click that new game button. After some time away from the game, I returned in the past week to start a brand new character, Grusty Brandle, to experience the game as if it were my first time. The intro cutscene continues that goosebump feeling from the menu. The delivery of the lines as the characters are introduced and setting the scene for the lands between and your tarnished journey ahead of you. Very early in the journey, as I open the crypt doors, I'm reminded of one of the many step-out moments that hit you, and it's one of the best step-out moments in gaming. Step-out moments like these are one of my favorite things in video games, especially in open world games. That first moment where you step out into the world and see what's ahead of you and everything that you can explore and do. Elden Ring doesn't just have one of these. There are at least 5 that I can remember, and each as epic as the last as you see a brand new location that's completely different to where you came from and see what's ahead of you on this journey. For this playthrough, I decided to play as a wretch and attempt to play the game as if it were my first time and just explore, enjoy, and not boss rush, which after hundreds of hours and 60 plus YouTube videos, I haven't played the game the right way since probably the middle of last year. The content creation space means essentially sprinting to encounters and places that I want to get footage of and ignoring everything else. This can leave for an often lesser experience, especially as you think about the game and as it blends with your thoughts and opinions of the game as a whole in a bad way as you forget the fun of the game originally. I'm not saying that Elden Ring isn't fun, but after you've spent 2 days straight testing every bleed weapon in the game against enemies and bosses and then ranking them for a YouTube video, it quickly becomes work, and it's very easy to lose what made you want to do that in the first place. For this video, I don't need to tell you how good of a game Elden Ring is. I'm sure you've heard that from myself and from other people on the internet. My purpose here is to tell you about the journey that Elden Ring has taken in this past year and what it's like returning to the game. As the time started to pass and I explored Limgrave, I began to remember what's special about the game, like stumbling onto an NPC that you forgot was there and just talking to them and seeing what they have to say, or finding new weapons and armor and whatever other secrets are out and around all of the corners, especially all the catacombs that you forget where exactly they are. The biggest realization I had was the open world, and it's almost a tranquil feeling to its design as you quietly explore, listening to the music and the ambient sound, only to be brutally interrupted by enemies. But it's that quietness in those moments that make Elden Ring different to other Souls games, but also to other open world games. That moment of peace with no objective, just wandering the landscape, almost like a walking simulator, and I find these moments reminiscent of what I loved about Red Dead Redemption 2. Just simply wandering around, taking in the world, and I imagine one of the hardest things in game development is making simply riding a horse enjoyable, but both of these games make it wildly fun. I've made basically every build combination you can, but I started this journey with simply a club and I thought, why don't we keep it simple? So my greatsword and I took on Margit and headed up to Stormvale Castle before I turned around and decided to spend more time exploring Limgrave. I came across Patches in his little cave and it got me thinking, what's changed since launch? Elden Ring has had 8 major patches since launch. Most of these patches were balance changes or tweaks. That's not really interesting to talk about here, but I wanted to look back at the additions that From Software have actually done since launch, because I think it's easy to forget as we're looking forward into whatever the DLC may be. We start with patch 1.03, the first major patch since launch, which was released on the 17th of March last year. You could boil this patch down into simply being the NPC patch. It added a function to show NPCs on the map, which was severely needed, especially at launch. We also added Jarberg, the location, as well as the NPC Jarbarn. Several other NPCs got their quest lines finished, as well as additional lines of dialogue added to those quests. On the 19th of April, just over a month later, we got patch 1.04, and this added some extra phases to the NPC patch's questline, and as well as a massive balance change to sorceries and incantations. For the next month and a bit, we didn't hear much from Software. Most players finished their initial playthrough and moved into New Game Plus, and it seems like that prompted From Software to release patch 1.05 on June 13th, which made a significant change, making New Game Plus easier in that for all the bell bearings that you bring to the Twin Maiden husks at the Roundtable Hold, they will actually keep over into the New Game Plus playthroughs, so you don't have to bring the bell bearings to them for every playthrough. This is a small change, except it's a big change for people like me that jump into New Game Plus over and over again as they're testing different builds and playing around with different mechanics in the game. And then it was over a month again until we heard from another patch. And this next patch really made some minor changes to the signs and summoning and co-op aspects of the game, which seemed to be their answer to the seamless co-op mod in making the co-op and multiplayer aspects of the game a little bit simpler. And then again, following the 2-month pattern, on October 13th, we got patch 1.07, which was mainly a balancing patch for both PvE and PvP, as it significantly split out the damage scaling for PvP, creating 2 separate streams for PvE and PvE. This patch was essentially preparation for something that we had all speculated was coming, but we finally got confirmation on December 6th that the next day, on December 7th, patch 1.08 was coming with the Colosseum's PvP update. This patch finally opened the doors to the 3 Colosseums in the game, adding a brand new PvP matchmaking system, allowing PvPers to fight in an arena in different kinds of combat. And for the PvE players, we got 5 new hairstyles.
I expect nothing, and I'm still let down.
It's now been 2 months since that patch in December, and following that cadence of roughly a patch every 2 months, we could be hearing about patch 1.09 soon, or potentially something else with the anniversary coming up. You may know more about this than I, as this video will go out on the anniversary and they may have made an announcement at that time. While the core of Elden Ring has remained the same since its original release date, there have been numerous quality of life improvements which are noticeable, like the ball bearings change to the Twin Maiden husks, or the addition of having a little icon next to the sacred flask symbols when you're at the sites of grace that indicate that you can upgrade them, or even the NPCs being marked on the map, which I think is a huge change that we now take for granted. And I look back at my original Google Doc that just had a list of all the NPCs, their names, and where they were located, which is no longer needed. Elden Ring was one of the most hyped games prior to its launch, since probably Cyberpunk 2077. I think hype is a double-edged sword in the gaming industry. We see games like Cyberpunk 2077 trip out of the starting block, but also there are titles like Elden Ring that burst out of the starting block seemingly unstoppable. To me, Elden Ring is one of the few games that lived up to that hype straight out of the gate. The world just never seemed to end, but in a good way. Often games that are 100 hours long get repetitive, or you reach a certain point where you're just trying to race to the end to see the story through, but for every new discovery, every new area I found, I never wanted to stop playing Elden Ring, and that was evident through basically all the videos I released on this channel last year. I've never been interested in lore from FromSoft games, but I couldn't stop myself from watching every one of VaatiaVidya's lore videos. I just wanted to know more, see more, understand more, and that's even evident this week as I take my time to replay the game at a much slower pace. I'm reminded why I was drawn to the game in the beginning. It's not just the open world, but it's the often depressing NPCs, the unique boss designs, and the stories behind them. And that's not even touching on the combat, which I think is one of the best in video games, especially the build diversity and flexibility and how you choose to play your character, and the way that that character or that build really has its own personality and feels unique, which is something that is often lacking in games like this, where they offer you different builds and play styles. But Elden Ring has so many weapons and armor and different ways that you can play your character that it really feels like a unique expression of your own playstyle, rather than following a YouTube guide, which you should follow my YouTube guides. But today, it is Elden Ring's birthday, so we should all celebrate, and Elden Ring is one of the few games that lived up to the hype. I'd be interested to know what you think. Do you think that Elden Ring lived up to the hype? Are you even still playing Elden Ring? You can let me know in the comments down below. I'm very interested to see where the Lands Between goes and what the future of the Tarnished holds. Thanks for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza. I hope you have a great day.